Hello and welcome to Newswire Afghanistan Special. I'm Jawad Tehami. You're watching this program live from our studios in Islamabad. Afghanistan stands at a critical juncture in history as the war between the Taliban and the government forces intensifies. The Taliban have run over 7 provincial capitals as of today, and the situation has been dubbed as highly concerning by the US. Now, talking about Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby, he said that the Afghan forces are capable of fighting the Taliban. At the same time, US Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad is in Doha to push the Taliban to resume the dialogue. Now, talking about Afghan President Ashraf Ghani, he earlier criticized US policy of an abrupt withdrawal of the foreign troops, saying he had earlier warned about the consequences. Now, coming to Pakistan's side, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has made it clear that although Islamabad played an instrumental role in bringing the Taliban to the negotiating table, yet is only the facilitator of the Afghan peace process and not a guarantor. Now, Pakistan's National Security Advisor, Dr. Moeed Yusuf, has termed the worsening situation a nightmare scenario and urged the US to take the lead in negotiating with the Taliban. Earlier, US Defense Secretary General Lloyd Austin expressed his interest in building upon the multiple shared interests in the region in a phone call with Pakistan's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa. And now, to delve deeper into the situation that is unfolding in Afghanistan and its fallout, we are joined by Lieutenant General retired Ijaz Awan, a defense analyst joining us from Islamabad, and Mr. Anwarul Haq Kakar, Senator from Pakistan, joining us from Quetta. Thank you, both of gentlemen, for your time at Newswire. I'll begin with you, Senator Kakar. How do you see the situation unfolding in Afghanistan as the Taliban gain territory with each passing day?
Thank you so much for having me. The situation in Afghanistan is bleak, it is alarming, it is of deep concern, not just for Pakistan, but for the rest of the region and international community as well. Every day, every moment, every hour, the Afghan forces are either resisting less or surrendering to the onslaught of Taliban, which is not a good sign. It is not an encouraging sign after a squandered opportunity of 2 decades and trillions of dollars. If this is the institutional outcome of Afghan state, it would be a point of concern for everyone in the region, because our last hope was on Afghan state that they would take up on this challenge and they would respond to this challenge in an effective manner to have the control over their territory and bring peace and security to their own population from the onslaught of this militia or group. But unfortunately, the kind of situation which is unfolding, it is telling us a story otherwise.
Okay, Senator Kakar, I'll come back to you with this very point. Let me just go to General Awan. The pace, General, at which we see the Taliban are gaining territory shows that the Afghan government forces are clearly overwhelmed. Is it correct to say that? Because we have seen recently the troops crossed into Tajikistan and some of them also into Pakistan. What do you say about that?
Yes, indeed. I think expectations of the world and particularly the United States leadership from the Afghan National Army were a little overestimated, I would say, because if one has the resources, you can build an army, you can raise an army, say in a decade, having a strength of 100, 200,000 if you have the resources. But you need to give them a general with 40 years of experience who can command them and lead them into combat. And that is where the Afghan army lacks. Then the second thing is their ethnic leanings are so strong that I would not count much on the Afghan National Army, though they are best equipped. India and America has trained them and they were given a fairly good training. Their special services group is good, but somehow or the other they have not shown that resistance, and we see that Taliban are making progress with every passing day. but one has to see the mindset between the two. One, that Taliban see themselves as victorious because the force, the coalition that came to destroy them and decimate them, it has entered into a dialogue with the same force in Doha and guaranteed them a lot many things. For example, delisting of them, their release of their prisoners, and asking them to provide surety that Afghan soil will not be used for international terrorism. When United States of America asked these guarantees or give this much to the Taliban, the force that resisted them for 2 decades, and keep the elected government away from the dialogue table, I think the result, which is what we are seeing now, was a writing on the wall. I don't know what was the illusion in their mind and why they failed to read it. But unfortunately, this is what is happening. I wish some better sense can be driven, but still I would say the key is with the United States of America. Unless they force the Ashraf Ghani government to accept a national government and sit with the Taliban on the dialogue table once again, that would be the way forward.
You rightly mentioned that there were lofty claims on the part of the U.S. assistance forces which were over here for the last 2 decades. And more recently, when we saw President Joe Biden saying that one in his recent speech, particularly that was very specific to the Afghanistan situation and the troops withdrawal, he said that America would always stand by the people of Afghanistan, and they will continue to train the troops in Afghanistan as well. So that is very contrary to the ground reality that we are seeing nowadays.
Unfortunately, President Biden is not only standing by the people of Afghanistan, they are using massive force which has already been used for 2 decades and it has failed. Now, when you start carpet bombing, what happened the other day in Lashkargah, when you use B-52 bombers and drones and kill the people on ground, this would result, B-52 cannot identify the friend and foe. So when you have a collateral damage, it would give more resistance and it would give fillip to the movement of the Taliban. So I think the better way was, since the force had not yielded the result desired in the last 2 decades, negotiated political settlement should have been the desire and should have been taken to the logical conclusion. And all factions, of all Afghan factions, particularly Ashraf Ghani government, should have been made to sit on the dialogue table with the Taliban so that they could arrive at some solution, which has not been done, unfortunately. So, and now, yes.
Please carry on. Go ahead, please.
And now when President Biden says that Afghan forces are strong enough to resist, we will provide them support. The over-the-horizon operations are continuing, and funding of the Afghan National Army and Ashraf Ghani government is continuing. I interpret it as a soldier that United Nations has a control and leverage and influence over the Ashraf Ghani government, which is the main stumbling block in the way of arriving at a politically or negotiated settlement. So I think they should use their influence rather than pressuring Pakistan and asking them to force Taliban. Pakistan, as you said in your intro, and you referred to the foreign minister of Pakistan, we are facilitators, not guarantors.
General Aban, I'll have to again interrupt you there. I'll like to discuss this very statement by Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi a little into detail, but later on down the time. Now, let me move to Senator Kakar. Senator Kakar, as we have just talked about the training that was given to the Afghan troops over here in Afghanistan, the lofty claims that were made by the U.S. officials and the authorities over the past months and years, we have seen. Now, do you think that they were not actually trained, or not enough was spent in their training so that they could actually face the onslaught by the Taliban that is underway right now?
Look, if you observe or analyze the last 2 decades, what has happened in Afghanistan, the goalposts of United States and NATO allies have altered with every year or so. I mean, they initially came to oust Taliban, to punish Al-Qaeda, to eliminate Al-Qaeda. When that happened, they moved towards so-called nation building or institutional building project. But that so-called nation building or institutional project was never taken serious. If you go back and see the Cigar report, which was published in a series in Washington Post, probably last month or so, it clearly shows where did it go wrong. They spent almost $70 million to find out that what went wrong. And if I can quote from that report, if their presence could be described in two words, that is mendacity and hubris. There were continuous lies about the ground situation in Afghanistan. It was more or less misleading to the Central American establishment, political establishment, security establishment, and the establishment was suffering from hubris. They never thought that this far-flung area is either ungovernable for them, provided this the kind of a resource which was available to them in the trillions of dollars of American taxpayers' money, and their own capacity probably was overstated. They never thought that there would be a timeline when they have to leave Afghanistan. They probably thought that their presence is perpetual there, which it was not. And when the reality moment came and the reality check was there, they had to leave, then the realization came that where are the Afghan defense forces in terms of training? Where is their civilian institutions in terms of training? Where is their governance structure? And they found out that they have left with nothing. They have not even, they do not even have the basics of the governance where a state can come to a functionality. So the biggest challenge is the functional state is not there, and a large, widespread movement of Afghan Taliban is on the rise. So you don't have a governance structure and a militia which is on the rise.
Senator Kakar, point well taken. I'll move to General Aban. Please hold your thought over there. I'll come with a couple of other points to discuss in detail. General Aban, John Kirby, in that very statement, the other part of the statement was, quote, these are the military, these are their provincial capitals, their people to defend, and it's really going to come to the leadership that they want to exude here at this particular moment, unquote. So just give me the sense of this statement. What does he mean after having spent 2 decades in Afghanistan and what the US did over there in Afghanistan? All of a sudden, it becomes the responsibility of the Afghan forces, their people to defend?
Unfortunately, as Senator Kakar is saying, the true picture was not either correctly read or was not correctly presented to the state of to the establishment of United States of America. The presence, 2 decades-long presence with the 140,000 troops and a very strong and potent Air Force component with them, they were unable to get the desired results, and they knew it right from the beginning that their hold on the Afghan territory was restricted to Kabul and surrounding areas, and more than half of the area, more than 50% of the area was a no-go for them, or it was in the influence of the Taliban. When that was the ground reality, and there was a stage in between when Taliban were weak, that was the time to enter into a political negotiation and look for a political settlement. And this was time and again advised to them by the Pakistan military leadership and Pakistan's political leadership. But unfortunately, the military leadership in Kabul or leading the coalition force did not pay any attention to this recommendation. They rather still pushed on and looked for a military solution. So this has been a very dismal performance on the part of coalition, a very poor reading of the battlefield by the American generals, and overall the change of goalposts, as Senator Kakar is saying, by the American political leadership has brought us to this day as we are seeing it now.
Okay, Senator Kakar, as the fighting intensifies, we see a huge number of people being displaced. What does this mean for the neighboring countries, especially for Pakistan and Tajikistan and others? A sort of a refugee influx?
Well, every country, particularly Pakistan, would be observing it with a deep concern. But so far on ground, which we are observing, the kind of influx which was anticipated is not being seen. Good for all of us and good for Afghanistan also. They've seen that on all the border areas being controlled by Taliban forces, and they seem to discourage the influx of the people from Afghan side to any other country. But even then, it's a deep point of concern for every country, and Pakistan has got its own tentative plans that if such a situation arises, what needs to be done.
Okay, General Awan, this is what exactly was alluded by Prime Minister Imran Khan. In case of a civil war, with the pace the Taliban are unleashing their onslaught. So what kind of a strategy or the options does Pakistani side have in case such a refugee influx happens?
Well, I think Pakistan has been overburdened with the refugees in the last 2 decades, or little more than that. At one time we had 5 million, and now we are still housing about 3 million of them. And because of those refugee camps, their presence and their movement to meet their relatives or their families across the border, unfortunately, we were accused of harboring Taliban or providing sanctuary to them and allowing them to cross over. So this has been a misunderstood thing. So therefore, we have learned a lesson, and now if the refugees come, we would like to contain them in the camps that we are already planning and we have organized, and we would like to restrict them in the Afghan territory close to the border, or we would only allow them to cross over and remain restricted to the camps that are being prepared. And there's a lot, quite a sizable arrangement, or the camping sites have been selected and the arrangements are being made. But fortunately, as Senator Kakar is saying, we have not seen the movement of Taliban, the refugees or externally displaced people, as we would like to call them. We have not seen any influx as was expected.
So you're of the view that Pakistan would be in a position to better handle them if they cross over to in Pakistan. So, I mean, after the border fencing that Pakistan launched a couple of years before, and around 90% of that border fencing has been completed as per the latest statistics. So do you think that would also help Pakistani authorities in order to contain that likely refugee influx into Pakistan?
Well, definitely it will help, because that it will not be free for all kind of movement. We would have a regulated movement of externally displaced people into the camps. We will be a lot comfortable, but yet financial burden, of course, the international community has to chip in, and they have to carry that burden, because we are a resource-constrained country. We are already housing 3 million people, and I don't think our financial position is such that we can handle another 2 million or a million or little less than that what is expected. So I think it would be a shared burden. The burden must be shared by the international community, but we'll be able to, with the given arrangements, we'll be able to regulate the movement to a great deal.
General Awan, your point well taken, that Pakistan would be able to regulate if such type of situation of the refugee influx happens to be over here for Pakistan. Lieutenant General Ijaz Awan, defense analyst, joining us from Islamabad. Thank you very much for your time. And Senator Anwarul Haq Kakar is going to continue with us in the next segment of the show. But we'll take a short break here, and after that we'll try to explore different aspects of the situation that is unfolding in Afghanistan. For that, stay tuned. Welcome back to Newswire Afghanistan Special. And in the first segment of the show, we were joined by Lieutenant General Ijaz Afwan and Senator Anwarul Kakar from Quetta. And now we are joined by Lieutenant General retired Naeem Khalid Lodhi, defense analyst. General Lodhi, thank you for your time as well. So what went wrong exactly as we see the Taliban gaining territory with every single passing day? And as of today, they have gained 7 provincial capitals over there. We saw a historic peace deal being signed between the US and the Taliban. What exactly went wrong that instigated the Taliban to go on such a rampage?
Actually, if I'm not there to surprise you, I would say that nothing has gone wrong. Everything is going right. Because what else could have happened? Just imagine that if the combined forces of US, NATO, and Ashraf Ghani, they could not defeat Taliban or they could not overcome Taliban. And once, for example, there was a stalemate, and we can just assume a figure 4 on each side, that a potential of 4 was on one side, potential of 4 was on the other side, so there was a stalemate. Now, out of 4, one of the sides, only 1 is left, 3 have gone. So what do you expect? What is likely to happen? So whatever was expected, whatever was likely to happen, only that is happening. I'm not surprised at all. I'm only surprised at the strategy which Afghan Taliban have exhibited. I mean, I admire their generalship. They immediately absorbed all these spaces which were easily absorbable. They started talking to people in the small towns, and most of the towns, smaller towns, they just fell. People, they gave up their arms without a fight. There were only small skirmishes. Now, once they are closing into the main cities, there is fight. There is no doubt about it. But as far as the casualties are concerned, I think more casualties must be happening because of the carpet bombing of the US B-52 bombers, because carpet bombing, we all understand what it is. So it doesn't see a friend and foe. So I think whatever I, as a military man, was expecting, that is happening, with only one surprise for me, that the strategy of Taliban has been superb. They absorbed these spaces, they closed all the borders, the main crossings, and now they are besieging the cities. But the speed at which, the lightning speed at which they are moving, only belies that everything is not getting because of fighting. They are probably talking also, and many cities are falling just because of their talking. And also look at their diplomacy. They have been to Iran, they have been to Russia, they have been to China, and everywhere they are removing all the apprehensions of the world about the women, about the girls' education, about minorities, about their area not being used by any elements to attack the foreign, other countries. So I think if a superpower leaves after 20 years, this is at least which could have happened, that at least we must wait for 2 years for the things to settle down. So I do not agree with this thing that something wrong is happening. Everything right is happening. Okay,
as you just started your talk by saying that this particular premise that you've just built might surprise, does it? What kind of a message does it send to the outer world that the strategy of the Taliban had been superb, while the foreign minister of this country, Shah Mahmood Qureshi, reiterates again and again that Pakistan won't allow or won't favor any sort of a forceful military takeover. So do we see a difference between that statement and the surprising statement that you had just come up with?
Right. There are two things. Once we say that whatever the world is saying, so if we think that CNN and BBC is the world, so yes, they are saying all these things, but please include in the world China, include in the world Iran, also include Russia, Pakistan, and whatever we are saying, we are more closer to Afghanistan. So this statement, which that anything taken forcefully, we will not accept. If we go 20 years back, how do you think the coalition forces took Afghanistan from Afghan Taliban? Was it peacefully, or was it a forceful takeover? So if that forceful takeover was okay and kosher, so today's forceful takeover is non-kosher just because Americans are saying that, or just because the stages, the states which are under their influence, they are staying there. So I do not buy that. Today is a world of falsehood, world of mind manipulation, a world of perception management. So we need to be very careful about it, that from which sources we are getting all these things. I think Afghan Taliban were freedom fighters. They fought for the freedom of the country. They fought valiantly. And if they were not settled with America and NATO, they will never get settled with the remnants in this country. But yes, what they are saying is they want inclusive government. They say we will not have monopoly on that. So please listen to them also, what they are saying.
Exactly.
So
So, General Lodi,
things
I'll come with that particular point to just take a deeper look into what the Taliban are actually demanding. Senator Kakar, when it comes to Ashraf Ghani's criticism, when he says that it was the abrupt withdrawal by the US, so why his guns are now all of a sudden pointed towards the US? He has been trying to scapegoat Pakistan as well for the failures of his own government over there in Afghanistan.
Well, to be honest with you, it is complete a nonsense and a reflection of a deep frustration which is being exhibited, unfortunately, from the side of Afghan president. Doha negotiations started some 2 years back, and the initiation of those talks had a likely outcome, everyone knew, on the withdrawal of the U.S. troops and NATO forces. Prior to that, there was engagement, back-channel diplomacy with these groups, and everyone knew about it. So it is not a surprise that all of a sudden, that within a month, United States decided and they announced their withdrawal, so they have been left on their own. So that sort of a time period, which was last 2, 3, or 4 years, gave actually an opportunity, and it should have been exploited, and the moment should have been seized in building Afghan institutions, which unfortunately they failed. If they have to blame anyone or someone, that is the Afghan leadership themselves.
Okay, so General Lodi, the point that you just raised before, that it was about the strategy of the Taliban that remains superb. So do you consider that factor as well, that after having remained over here for 2 decades, the American forces, the foreign troops were not, couldn't actually train the Afghan forces over here to deal with any sort of uprising that might happen after the troops withdrawal?
I think that is a fact, and also there are certain organizational, problems as far as the Afghan army is concerned. For example, I can indicate one, that most of their officers, they are from the northern areas, and most of the soldiers, they are from other areas. They are normally, Pathans. So this is a big mismatch because they feel that they are being, officered by people from other regions. Now, this is very important because we understand, we have been in army, so this affiliation between officer cadre and the foot soldiers is very important. And secondly, I think the morale which the Taliban are enjoying today is very different than the morale which the Afghan army is having, because they have seen their most trusted ally, for whom they have been fighting all along with them, the Americans and the NATO. They just ditched them and went away. And according to them, although I do not contribute to this idea that they are going in a haste after 20 years. If they are leave, you can't say that they are going in a haste. And as Kakar Saab was saying, that the planning of going was taking place for the last 2 years. So it is not at all as far as the haste is concerned. So I think Afghan Taliban, they have learned a lot. It is their native land. They understand the geography very well. They understand the sociology very well. And that is why once they talk to people, most of them, they give in. And Pathans, as Kakar Saab will bear me out, are very practical people. They understand that whose gun is more powerful and whose gun is bigger caliber. And accordingly, they settle their things. And that is exactly what is happening. I always predicted that there will be a turmoil, which is taking place now. Then there will be, they will sit. There will be a grand jirga. They will, make some sort of government which will be inclusive. Of course, spearheaded by Taliban. They are the most significant military power and political power. And I also, in my own opinion, they will not attack Kabul. And because they are very cognizant of two things. One, Taliban, they need international recognition and they need internal support. And for internal support, they are not going for those ruthless techniques as they did 20 years back. And for external support, they are meeting all neighbors, all significant countries, and also talking to people more rather than asserting by rhetorics and all that. So I think they are a different breed, and whatever they are doing in strategy, in politics, in diplomacy, it is much superior than Ashraf Ghani.
Okay, General Lodhi, you've mentioned a very important and interesting thing over here, that there is very less likelihood of the Taliban attacking Kabul just because they want international recognition. Senator Kakar, what do you say about that? Is there any likelihood of Taliban going to have an onslaught on the capital of that country?
I do not see in near future that happening. But to be honest with you, in my opinion, the biggest challenge for Taliban would be what sort of a political plan they have in mind. It is not just their survival, which they have done in the last 2 decades, which has won them a lot of acceptability at international level, if not legitimacy. The acceptability is there as a movement that they have survived. But how they're going to come up with a political survival is far bigger a challenge. The international community is looking for some sort of retention of what they have gained in these 2 decades. They are talking about certain norms of human rights and women's rights, so on, some democratic practices or mechanism. So they have to come to a middle path somewhere where they do not compromise on their basic ideology, but at the same time, they have to live in the community of nations. They have to have this realization. And how that realization would be politically translated would actually show their leadership, would actually show their strength, and would actually show their acumen and wisdom, of which a lot of people are talking these days. If they fail themselves or Afghan people, I think so, it would be the squandered opportunity of the century for Afghanistan.
Okay, General Lodhi, when we talk about Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi's statement in a press conference yesterday, he made it very clear that Pakistan can only be a facilitator in the Afghan peace process and not a guarantor. And at the same time, he said, mentioned a lot of sacrifices Pakistan had to pay during the war on terror. How do you analyze this statement, Pakistan being as a facilitator only and not a guarantor of the peace over there?
I think in the prevailing circumstances, his statement is very accurate and very, very honestly reflects the true situation. Because, Pakistan has said this thing earlier also, that if Americans, they wanted to talk to Taliban or they wanted Taliban to talk to other factions, which I believe that they are talking to everyone except Ashraf Ghani. So the world thinks that intra-Afghan dialogue means dialogue between Ashraf Ghani and Taliban. Excuse me. Whereas Taliban are talking to everyone else except Ashraf Ghani. They started doing it 3 years before. Once they met in Moscow, and many factions, Afghan factions, they were there. The Hazaras were there, the Turkmens were there, the women were there. So they were talking to people. The only thing is that, in my own assessment, they will never talk to Ashraf Ghani, even if they say that they will be talking it. They will while away time. They will consolidate their military strength, and then they will talk to other factions from position of power. And that is how Afghan normally they deal with each other. So that is what is happening. And if I look at their diplomacy, if I look at their strategy, I have no doubt that their internal politics also, they will show brilliance as they have shown in other. So whatever Senator Kakar Saab is saying, he's right, that their actual wisdom will be seen once they deal with their internal arrangements. And I'm quite confident that looking at their other aspects, I think they will also shine as far as this aspect is concerned.
Senator Kakar, as National Security Advisor, said that it is turning out to be a nightmare scenario. So the U.S. should take lead in order to convince the Taliban to resume dialogue. And U.S. Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad is in Doha to push for that effort. Do you think we might see the Taliban being convinced by the U.S. Special Envoy, because he has been very instrumental in the signing of that historic peace deal as well?
Yes, I mean, look, U.S. has got a moral responsibility over here. At the moment when we are talking, it's still the biggest economic and military power on the earth. It is leading an alliance of willingness of democracy throughout the world. It is talking about great human rights and values. So if you are a power with such a value system, you have a deep moral responsibility if you have spent 2 decades in a country or in a region, and by leaving that country or region, if it's an utter mess, that is going to haunt the U.S. image. So it is better for U.S. image, it is better for the region, it is better for the global stability also, that some sort of a negotiated settlement among the different Afghan sections or the so-called intra-Afghan dialogue takes place, and it is translated into a political mechanism where the ultimate goal is to bring peace, and peace with some semblance of governance and a way of life where it can act as a normal country within the international community. So if that is the goal post, who's going to take that lead? Would it be Afghans themselves? I think so. They are badly and poorly equipped to attain such a lofty target. Is anywhere there in the region who can do or achieve that task on their own? I seriously doubt that. So who else is there? The moral responsibility and the practical responsibility lies on the U.S. to take a lead. I think so. The NSA is absolutely right that they cannot abandon this region, they cannot abandon Afghanistan. They have left it, but they cannot abandon it. So there is a role for the United States, which I think so, in shape of Zalmay Khalilzad, would be continued to bring this sort of a desired result.
Okay, General Lodi, what do you say, as Senator Kakar just alluded to, the fact that it is the moral responsibility of the U.S. to lead, to bring back the Taliban to the negotiating table?
Am I audible now?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I think with our NSA, with due respect that he deserves, of course, he has a lot of information, much more than me. So what I say is because of the open sources, he must be having more information. So I do not really, I can't say that I want to negate him, but I do not totally agree with him on both the points. One, that the Afghan situation is going towards any catastrophic, and I think the Afghan situation is just moving along the most expected trajectory. If somebody can tell me what else could have happened if a big, large force like US and NATO, they leave a country after 20 years, so what other options, somebody should build a scenario that it could have happened like this, could have happened like this. Secondly, if Americans were interested in peace, and if we're interested in intra-Afghan dialogue, they were here physically for 20 years, they could have done it. So how on earth we are expecting that once they have gone from this place and from some remote strings, they should now, do all these things which they could not do once they were here physically. So expecting all this from Americans is great expectations. In my opinion, very soon they will cut all their things and move away. Of course, they have a lot of interest in this region, but as Kakar Saab was asking, who else will be here to do all this, cajoling Afghans and asking them and trying to convince them that they should talk? Russia, China, Iran, Pakistan, some Central Asian countries. My brother, there's no vacuum. Keep the Americans away, everything will be okay.
Point well taken. General Lodi, we're short of time, so one last but very important point to be discussed. What about the peace spoilers? We saw that there was the UN Security Council meeting held on Afghanistan and Pakistan was not invited because India was the chair of that, and a clear dismay shown by Pakistani authorities. What do you say about that?
I think that those powers which are detractors and they don't want peace, we must identify them very clearly and name them also. India is one of them, and I would even include Ashraf Ghani and one or two of his friends. So we should now start ignoring them. What else do you expect from India? They are enemies, so their animosity cannot be, said that why are they doing it? They will do it whenever they get a chance. So I would suggest our leadership, if they can listen to me, ignore Ashraf Ghani, ignore India, and keep your thing focused on peace. Get all those who want peace, and there's a very strong group, those who want peace, and I've already named them.
General Lodi, point well taken. This point, very briefly, Senator Kakar, what do you say about these peace spoilers? Has Pakistan's stance been proven when India didn't invite Pakistan to that UN Security Council briefing on Afghanistan?
I mean, on this, I would agree with General Lodi. I mean, what do we expect of the declared enemy? I mean, India is an open enemy for last several decades of the state of Pakistan. If its creation, they have not digested the idea of Pakistan. So we should not delude ourselves as far as the desires and intentions of India is concerned. What is required is that better diplomatic responses. Wherever we get chance, we should be prepared, and there should be an approach where we preempt their moves as far as Afghanistan is concerned, or other moves of theirs when it comes to isolating Pakistan at international forums.
Senator Anwarul Haq Kakar, thank you very much for your time joining us from Quetta. We really appreciate that. And Lieutenant General retired Naeem Khalid Lodi, you really mentioned a lot of interesting points in today's discussion. We really appreciate your time at Indus News, and we look forward to discuss things in detail with you in future as well. And with this point, we come to the end of today's Afghanistan special at Newswire. Thank you for watching. With a more detailed analysis, we'll be back with you on different issues. For that, stay tuned.